Hi, this is Claire Pratia and welcome to another Hero Arts video. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to make two quick cards using a little bit of watercoloring and the Welcome Neighbor stamp set. The Welcome Neighbor stamp set has a lot of little extra additional details, so you can really build a scene. There's a fence, chimneys, a car, trees, clouds. There's lots of little extra things. However, to make these cards really quick and simple, we're just going to be using the four main buildings, which have enough detail in them to give some interest without us having to stamp anything extra. So I'm going to place those on some clear blocks, and then we're going to be stamping these on some radiant white cardstock. I'm going to stamp my focal point house first in grape juice, and then I'm going to stamp the rest of the row of houses in summer sky to the side. The reason I'm not starting from the side of the cardstock and working my way in is because if I don't start with my focal point and I start from the side, I might not get my focal point placed exactly where I want it. So it's easier to stamp the focal point first and then kind of stamp the sides from there. That way I know that I got my focal point in the place that I want it to be. So after I've stamped those houses in summer sky, I'm going to take the largest house, and I'm going to stamp it in grape juice on another piece of radiant white cardstock, and then I'm going to die cut that so I can watercolor both of these houses at the same time. If you want to, you can keep the house in paper. You don't have to die cut it before you watercolor it. It might be a little bit easier, but I just decided to die cut it this time. Before I add any watercolor to either of these though, I'm going to heat set them because these cards are supposed to be pretty quick, so I don't want to have to worry about the ink bleeding. So normally the ink, you wouldn't have any problems with this ink bleeding if you just give it some time to dry, but because we're moving along quickly, I'm going to heat set it and make sure that there is no bleeding. So for these houses, I'm just going to be doing really simple coloring, really quick. Again, you'll hear quick a lot throughout this video. And I'm using indigo watercolor to color the majority of the house, and then I'll use some light purple for the windows. You can see on my palette that most of the ink on there is actually dried. It's all Hero Arts ink, all the watercolors. Some combinations that I mixed myself, but this is straight up indigo right here. You'll see that it's dry, and to activate it, once your ink dries, to activate it, all you need to do is just add a little bit of water. And I'm not even adding water to my entire little dried puddle, I guess. I'm just adding it to the very edge because I just want to do a light wash, so I'm just picking up a very little ink. You can see here with the windows, I only pick up ink once. I put it down in that one window, and then I'm able to kind of pull the ink from that window and spread it throughout the other ones. So it's the exact same process for both houses when it comes to watercoloring the purple and the blue. After the houses are watercolored, I want to add a light wash background for my sentiment stamp, the Handwritten Grateful. And this isn't necessary, but these houses were kind of quirky, and I thought, as long as I'm watercoloring, I might as well make a little background wash for the sentiment, just to make it pop out a little bit more and just for a little more visual interest. I want to point out real quickly that with this radiant white cardstock, it's really thick. It's 120 pounds, and it can actually take a little bit of watercoloring. That's why I'm doing it on for these cards. But it is not watercolor paper. It isn't. So if you add too much water, then it will warp. I think before that even happens, though, you might have problems with the paper pilling a little bit. It's not meant for watercolor, but we can get away with it on these cards because they're pretty simple. But just to point that out real quick, when I was doing my light purple wash there, the paper was just starting to pill a little bit. So I think it helps if you use less water, and then also if you don't move the brush back and forth. Moving the brush back and forth a lot will also kind of speed along the pilling process. So while that background wash dries, I'm going to stamp some clouds in soft sky for the background of this house. You could mask off the house and stamp the clouds, but I decided to just quickly put the house in place, figure out where I wanted the clouds, move the house out of place, and then stamp it. Again, it's all about being quick. So I stamped the handwritten grateful in grape juice on that background wash, and that card is pretty much finished. And when it came to the second card, I wasn't really sure which color I wanted to stamp the sentiment in, because I don't know if I was bored with the grape juice and the other card. I just wanted to try a different color. But I wanted to just see what my options were. So what I did was I took a piece of scratch paper and I stamped the sentiment in a bunch of different colors and then cut them out real quickly, nothing fancy. And through process of elimination, I decided which color I wanted to stamp for the sentiment. I ended up using Deep Ocean. So I placed my sentiment kind of using that piece of scratch paper, and then I went ahead and stamped the grateful. I also wanted to make sure I had room for a little additional sentiment. This sentiment is from Support Love Prayers. I wanted to add a little "for you" to the side, so I made sure that I had space enough for that when I was placing my sentiment. And then when I'm inking up the sentiment, the entire sentiment says "therefore you," and it has these little bullet points on either side, or little hearts. And all I wanted was the "for you." I didn't want the "there" and I didn't want the little hearts. So what I did was I masked off the heart on the "you" side, and then I just didn't ink up the "there" part. So once I had both of my sentiments stamped and my house adhered down, I decided that I wanted a little more of that deep ocean to pop out on the card, so I added a little bit more of that watercoloring to the house. All I needed to do was then make some card bases for these cards, because the Radiant White cardstock is just panels. It's not really enough to make an A2 card. So I just made my own A2 card bases and I adhered the panels to the front of them. If you have any comments or questions, I would love to hear them. You can leave them on the YouTube comment section, or you can go to the Hero Arts blog and leave a comment there. The Hero Arts blog will also have all the supplies listed. Thanks so much for watching and have a great day. God bless. Bye.